Hey y'all. I didn't know it started going live. Hey family. Listen, I brought my sage and my Apollo for this one because I had no idea that I would get the kind of interaction that I received. I knew that it was a very emotional conversation, but I didn't know that people would take my inquiry and my repost and my opinion and respond the way they did. So let's talk about it. So I got my sage lit so I can stay calm, because if you don't know me well, then you don't know that I am that girl and that I actually enjoy confrontation. I don't run from it. And I'm very integrated in both my light and shadow side. So I bless and curse people out equally. And I don't consider that to be a problem. I am real. I am human. And just because I serve my people and I have a platform does not mean I tolerate disrespect, whether it's blatant and aggressive or passive. And if you insinuate things about me just off of me asking some questions and a post, and you've had no interaction with me whatsoever, you don't actually know what I believe and think, then maybe we should be questioning your motives and integrity and not mine. So anyway, I'm actually not upset though. I actually love these kinds of dialogues. And for most of my time, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with me, my name is Taima Aziz Serwa. I am the founder and pioneer of an international movement and company, and I teach women in particularly how to heal everything through holistic medicine. I've been doing this work for 12 years straight, full time. Came out of corporate America. Actually, in my youth, I did a lot of political work in my community. I've received awards from the state of Maryland for my influence in my community on political issues. So I'm not new to this, but I am true to this. And so I participate in these conversations. But for years, I haven't done so publicly because I find that Black people get real upset if you don't just comply and say, yes, master, I'm going to vote what you think I should vote. And I was having a conversation with my good friend and sister yesterday who is voting Democratic, and that's her choice. I don't have a problem with that. I am not attached to who you vote for. I was genuinely with my post expressing I am embarrassed that for the first time in American history, we have a Black female presidential candidate. And what her campaign has put in front of us as a representation of her values is Quavo, Meg Thee Stallion, and I am waiting to hear her agenda so I can read it like I read everybody else's. I've read Agenda 47. I've read Project 2025. That was some brain exercise because that's like 1,000 pages. And what I do as a Black voter is I take notes and study what they're actually saying they intend to do. And I compare and I decide whose agenda best matches my values and the values that I think will advance my communities that I care about. So yes, she has the opportunity to be a world leader and representation of Black culture, and what she is putting in front of us is body. And y'all know I like Meg. I don't have a problem with it. But for a presidential candidate, you could have picked her if you was trying to reach a young demographic. You could have picked something that the entire world could look at and say, okay, This is how Black culture is articulated and represented in the Oval Office, in White House, in politics. I get trying to speak to different demographics, but I absolutely, personally, and my value system, am going to look at what is the conversation you're trying to have with these different demographics. And for whatever reason, Kamala, forgive me, I'm from Biloxi, Mississippi, so if I mispronounce her name, it's not intentional. She likes to posture herself with Sexy Red and Meg the Stallion. Biden loved to position himself with Cardi B. And I am offended because my ancestors sacrificed a lot in this country to have people respect our intelligence and our intellect and our political power, right? So I don't appreciate when any candidate is pandering to Black sentiment. Tell me what your agenda is. And I actually personally don't care about identity politics and race and that kind of stuff. I care about who can do the best job for the position they're running for. And when you're running for something and you're soliciting my support, my money, my influence, my resources, I am going to scrutinize your agenda. Unfortunately, in the few days that she and her campaign have been in this position, they have not articulated it. And that is what's embarrassing to me, is that in this historical moment, the first thing you want to present to the world about your campaign is Black entertainment. And that's my opinion. And I have a right to it without being accused of being a misogynist, or people assume that I'm voting for Trump. They didn't ask, they just assumed. Then people on the thread started projecting. I had to block a few people because there's certain levels of disrespect I just don't tolerate. But I also have a short toleration for projecting your charged emotions just off of an inquiry and my own expression that, hey, y'all, I feel embarrassed that we're not having a higher level conversation with this candidate, and she's not presenting things that would allow the world to see more than just how well Black people can entertain, sing, dance, and twerk. I expect there's so many other people that can represent Black culture on a political scene. Why are we choosing this kind of symbolism? And this is where I get frustrated with my community, because we always take, there's an energy of desperation. It's like we treat these politicians and these political campaigns like our savior. Like, this is the one we need to put our money behind. This is the one we need to put all of our support and energy and rally together. And I don't think we properly, as a collective, vet and qualify them before we give all these resources and energy. And I think we should change that. I think we should make people earn our votes. And I think that moving in fear, and I teach this, if you follow me for a while, I teach this, whether we're talking politics or anything else. I do not encourage anybody to use fear as the driving force for what you decide to do next. That's whether it's you trying to heal your womb and start your family. That's whether or not you're getting ready to go to the polls and vote. I would prefer that Black voters walk in emotionally regulated and be educated and confident in why you choose who you choose. So I want to make that very clear, because people dedicated a lot of energy to trying to create a narrative about me on this post that was grossly inaccurate. So I'm gonna go live and just talk to the people, because maybe you can hear it better than you can read it. And yes, I emphasized on this post that I am very frustrated and I do feel insulted. I do feel like miseducation is disrespectful. I feel like asking people for their resources and their votes and all of this stuff before you articulate what you intend to do is a strategy that doesn't have enough integrity for me. Tell me who you are. We talking politics. I'm not your friend. I'm not your homegirl. I'm not your homie. I want to know if you should earn my vote for president of the United States of America. I want to know if you can properly represent American values. And I want to know what you intend to do for this country that is going to make it better for everybody. I want to know what you feel about education. I want to know what you feel outside of your role as VP. Because you were in the Biden administration, but y'all not asking me to vote for the Biden administration. A lot of my Black people are asking me to vote for the Harris administration. Until this day, I still don't fully understand her agenda. I understand things she has done in her political career. I understand things she did as a senator. I know what her agenda was as a senator. I know what her agenda, that stuff has been published, but her agenda for what she intends to do as president has not been publicized. And so I'm looking at this one candidate's agenda. I'm seeing things in there that I like and I don't like. I'm looking at this other candidate. I've looked at all the candidates. Like red, blue, green, purple. I don't care. I'm going to scrutinize everybody because I'm actually a good steward of my energy. And I understand the sacrifices that were made for me to even have this kind of influence in my country. And I don't take that lightly. So I'm not going to rely on fear and sentiment and media headlines to use my energy casually. I'm very intentional and wise. And I am actually politically literate and intelligent. I read. So some people got offended because they thought I was assuming that the majority doesn't read, but that's not what I said. But I did begin to ask people on this thread, have you actually read Agenda 47? Have you actually read Project 2025? Have you actually read an agenda? Because from Harris, because I'm trying to compare apples to apples. I'm trying to see what everybody's trying to do and who's going to earn my vote. And the fact that people were insulted and offended by that blew my mind. It blew my mind. So I called my homegirl and she gave me some insight that I wanted to bring to the conversation. She said, Tama, I agree with your perspective and stance, but I want to add this layer in. She said, Black voters have been gaslit so much and have had to fight so hard for political power that in most of these conversations, people show up on the on the defense. They assume that you have ill intention because they've had chronic experiences of being gaslit, manipulated politically, and their vote being used to get over the barrier. But then, after that, Black agenda and Black interests aren't a priority or important. And I said, thank you for that, because my intention with the post was to activate educated voters and counter having triggered voters. But when I looked at the comments and the conversations, you could see on both sides, all sides, the majority of the conversation was from a triggered brain, not an educated one. There were very few people on that post that were able to give me bullet point by bullet point by bullet point why they want to vote for Harris and what they feel she has done that has added value to the Black voters. And I was excited because I want to have the higher level conversation. So, for example, when I was reading Agenda 47 and Trump mentioned his policies that he would like to put in place for families in America who want to homeschool their children, which is a growing demographic in America. More and more families are opting to homeschool. And I was reading through the bullet points on that. And I said, okay, this is interesting, because I had no idea that he was even having that conversation and that was in his agenda. And I said, okay, so I read what he intends to do there. Now, what does Harris intend to do for this growing demographic in America of homeschooling families? And I couldn't find her agenda. So I was looking for people who support her to map it out. Like, tell me why I should vote for her. And the majority of the comments was, anything is better than the orange-haired guy, and I was like, oh, this sounds like a full-blown trauma response. Full-blown. I'm gonna vote for her anyway. There were very few people that could articulate why. And this, for me, is a blind spot in our community that we need to look at. We don't have to agree who you should vote for and why. But I absolutely was embarrassed that even in those short days that she's been in a position to become a world leader, that instead of focusing on her values and clearly articulating that, she gave us entertainment. And I have the right to that opinion. And to be accused of producing dangerous rhetoric. Look, we saw this during the pandemic, right? Oh, if you don't run and get the shot, then you are dangerous, and you are. I don't live in fear, and I don't reside in that kind of thinking. I'm very educated and I'm very wise, and I know the power of my energy and where I place it. And I'm wise enough to know that if I don't have enough of the questions answered that align with my value system, then I need to slow down before I start putting all of my money, my resources, my energy, encouraging my platform. No, I need to go read what you really are about. I need to vet your integrity. I need to vet your value system. I need to vet your political career. I need to vet your track record. I need to learn who you are if you're going to get Tamer's vote. And I was shocked that some of my peers and so many people don't move in that kind of clarity. I was shocked. I'm being honest. And so many people were just like, I'm just afraid of the other candidates, so I'm just going to vote that way. And this is what you are encouraging our young people to do. This is what you're encouraging other people in the community to do. And I did feel it was an insult to the principles of American Black ancestors in this country who were marching, dying, and fighting for us to be respected politically. And I don't see how that kind of mindset articulates our intellect and our intelligence in the political space. And so I challenged that perspective as kindly as I could. I had compassion. Some of my sisters was like, I'm offended, Tamer, because I'm a Black woman in America who had to prove my Blackness. Well, nobody would be asking Harris to prove her Blackness if she wasn't putting that in the forefront of her messaging. And my good friend I was talking to about this yesterday, she said, well, I don't know if I blame Harris for that or the media pushing all of that through the headlines. I said, that's a good point. But what I am trying to get people to recognize is that when it's time for Black people to collectively participate in the political arena, look at what they use to get our attention and look at how you give your attention to it. Look at how they use Black entertainment. Like, we can't have higher level conversations. We can't talk about policies and stuff. All we can do is body, yada, yada, yada. Like, come on now. Give us more respect than that. We actually can have the higher level conversations about why we as a community are aligning with this person. I am offended. And if the media is pushing that, then I'm upset with the media. I don't like the majority of what they place in front of us around any of the candidates. I don't think they are honest. I do think it's manipulative news. And that's why I vet the narratives that are placed in front of me. That's why I don't just watch the news, watch what's trending on social media, and immediately jump in and say, yes, this is evil, and we need to go this way and that way. No, I read, I study. There's a scripture in the Bible that says, study to show yourself approved. So I know what conversations I can have with people. And that's why one of my first ways of figuring out what conversation I can have with you is to ask you why you believe what you believe. What are the policies that you agree with? And to my surprise, when I ask that in the communities of people that I serve, a lot of Black people don't even know the policies that they're getting ready to vote into office. They just know how they feel. And I'm looking forward to a day when we can get past just sentiment and feelings and show up collectively. I know Black people who individually show up in the political conversations at the higher political IQ. But I would love, yes, this is my dream. I would love to see a collective, organized presence of Black people on all sides that can articulate at a high level why, what are the policies they agree with, and why. You're going to have some people who are homeschooling parents who care about that. You're going to have some people who are in public education and they're concerned about the suggestion of the Department of Education being disbanded. I was shocked by that suggestion and I began to research it. I didn't immediately take action on it because I didn't have enough information to take action on. It made me ask questions like, well, where does the Department of Education come from? When was it born? And what was the purpose? And who birthed it? And what has happened throughout time? Why are we even having to hear this suggestion? Like, why are people thinking like this in this country? That's how I move. I study. And then I gather all of this information and I sit down and I make a decision about who's going to get my energy and my support. And there's been times in my life, and I talked about this on the post, where I withheld my vote because there was not a candidate that aligned with my values. And I reserve the right to do that. I'm not going to put somebody in there just to put somebody in there if their agenda has things in it that I cannot live with and I don't want my daughter to live with. That's my personal way of being. But to be classified as a misogynist, all this other stuff that y'all threw on my post, yeah, I dragged a few. Yeah, I sure did. Because you don't get to try to drag me into your narrative and your projection and your negative trauma response just because I have an opinion that is different from yours. I am not that kind of leader, and I ain't for everybody. Because I am rigorously honest about how I show up. And I do ask people to be honest about how they're showing up. If you're triggered, say you're triggered. If you're offended, you have the right to be offended, just like I do. But you don't have the right to start calling me names and all that other kind of stuff. And when you do, I might call you a name back. People who know me well know that that's how I get down. Like, you call me a name, I'm going to call you a name back. Like, I don't have a problem with that. You make assumptions about me, I might start making some about you. I return energy that does not align with my natural state of being. I am peace, I am calm, and I have opinions that you may or may not agree with. I'm looking forward to us being able to have a higher level conversation about politics and about why we are putting our support in certain ways without fighting against each other. Like, can we just talk? So I learned a lot. So to those of you who showed up on that post, and you were able to give me bullet points. One sister put screenshots. I loved it. Another sister put a link that I didn't know about where you can go and it's constantly updated on what are these politicians campaigning for and what are their agendas. And you can click on the name of the candidate. All of that was on the post. But the rest of y'all who was giving me 4-page letters, in your trauma response, please take a look at it. I love that part of the conversation too. I have nothing but gratitude for you even participating in it. But that the thread began to morph into us having to react to your trauma response instead of becoming educated about what the Harris campaign is really about and what her agenda is and what her political career has been and why we should consider her. And that's what I want to talk about. I don't want to give my energy to your uncontrolled fears and anxiety. I acknowledge it. I know it exists. That doesn't mean I have to bow to it. I don't. I can hold space for it, and I do that every day in the work that I do. I hold space for the people that I serve and help them learn how to regulate themselves, right? And really get clear on what they believe and why and how that belief shapes and molds what happens next in their life. And I can also participate in bringing my skill set in that way to the political space and say, hey, can we collectively not be relied on by certain parties or by this whole, all of them really, to invoke our trauma response and get us a rally and place our resources and our votes a certain way because we're afraid. Give me something more than your fear and rage and tell me what Harris is actually about so I can really see. Because I was looking on my own, I couldn't find it, hence why I was embarrassed. And what I could find when I was researching was Meg and Quavo. And I'm like, well, I've seen this before. I'm like, I know how to twerk. I'm very good with my cheek isolations. Left cheek, right cheek, bounce. But I know how to do all of that. What does this have to do with what you're going to do as president? I'm trying to figure out what you're going to do as president. I'm trying to figure out what you're about. What are you really about? And I don't do that just with her. I do that with every candidate that I'm considering that has caught my interest. Because the reality is I am not a politician. I have no interest in that. I really don't like to be in the political world, but politicians absolutely are soliciting my vote. They are coming to me, knocking on the door of my life as a citizen in this country and saying, hey, please vote for me. And I'm like, okay, I see you. Why? Why? Tell me why. I should give you my attention, my energy, my money, my support, my influence, my presence. Everything is energy. I would have, and it's just my personal preference, I would have preferred that Harris been out here demonstrating her intellect and her skills to the world stage that's watching as a Black woman presidential candidate for why she should be in office. And although I do think twerking can be one of those skills, it should not be the primary focus. I'm just saying what I said. And again, I love all the artists. I listen to their music. I listen to Meg. Meg is a great rapper. She's making history. I don't have a problem with Meg, but I don't know why her campaign decided to present that to us. And I do think that's a valid question. For all the things you want your voter base to zoom in on, who made that decision? If you wanted music, cool. But do we have to use music that is focused on ratchet sexuality on this stage? That should be in the Power Pleasure Masterclass. That's what that should be. But a presidential campaign, that's what you wanted the world to see about you first. You know, what we show the world about ourselves is a representation of our values. It is. Unless you're just fake and phony and you really have a different value system, but you're presenting something different. And how is that going to win my vote? It's not. I am trying to vet your integrity. I'm trying to vet your values. I'm trying to vet your agenda. I have a right to do that. I have a right to have questions without people in my own community throwing stones at me. Like, shut up, this is dangerous, and how dare you? I can express that. It's a little bit embarrassing that this is what we are highlighting. I'm trying to get to the meat. I'm trying to assess what we really are getting behind and why. So, as I posted on that thread, I gave gratitude. I brought a little gratitude, right? And I have deep gratitude for all of the perspectives that were expressed. I am not easily offended by confrontation or conflict. I have invested a lot personally and professionally in conflict resolution skills. I know how to debate. I know how to have difficult conversations that I feel are necessary conversations without having to accuse people and assume their values and what they believe. I wish I could see more of that in this conversation. And I understand the trauma that comes every election cycle for Black people. There's a lot of things that have been patterned and have become obvious to me about how we are triggered by media and triggered by politicians. But I think my people are stronger. And I think our ancestors gave us a roadmap on how we should move politically. And I think we should revisit that wisdom. And I think this election is going to be very important. You should use some of those tools to place your energy in a way that will create a legacy of power and political intellect and intelligence for those coming behind us. What you feel is important, but it should not be the only criteria that you are using to vote. That's my truth. It doesn't have to be yours, but I think it should be about more than just your feelings. Because I don't know about you, but I've lived long enough to recognize that everything I feel is not factual. Just because I feel it strongly doesn't make it true. Even when I was a kid, like there was times I used to feel like somebody was walking behind me and I was like, turn around and nobody was there. Oh, just because I felt it or feel it doesn't make it fact. We should know how to assess, vet, qualify a presidential candidate. And I want to see more of my Black people talking about that. Hey, not just telling people vote this way, but telling them why and what they should consider in their agendas and policies to do so. Can we have the higher level conversation or not? You have the right to opt out of that. But if you can come over here talking to me, please respect my boundaries, because I do have some. If we're going to talk about it, let's have the higher level conversation, because I think it's important. I love y'all. And I hope this gives another layer of understanding and allows you to feel my energy and my intentions of starting this dialogue. It's not because I want to hurt your feelings. It's not because I actually have already made my decision on who I'm going to vote for. I literally just expressed it. I think we should be seeing more than what's being presented, and it's getting embarrassing. I don't want the world stage to think this is all Black culture and Black people are about. And that stereotype already exists, unfortunately, that Black Americans are primarily a culture that is about hip hop and Black entertainment and sports. But no, we have real Black geniuses. And we have great Black politicians and policies and laws and influence. Why aren't we talking about it? Why isn't the campaign focusing in on that? And this is the last thing I'll say. She's going to be, if she wins, the president of the United States. So her agenda has to be bigger than Black people. I understand that. I actually don't prefer identity politics. I'm beyond race. I want to know who's the best person to do the job. That's what I want to know. And I need to see that resume. I need to see those points. If you're going to get my vote. And it's easy to find it on the other side. I went and read Agenda 47 and I went and read Project 2025 because the media was saying that that's Donald Trump's agenda. But when I read it, it was very obvious that it is by the Heritage Foundation, and that they regularly do and publish studies about what they think should happen in America. And I said, so I don't see Donald Trump's signature on this. Why is the media saying this is his agenda? So I went and I looked and I said, he's published his agenda. It's called Agenda 47 and it's right on donaldtrump.com and you can read it. And he put videos for those who are visual learners. And I said, oh, okay. So let me see what's happening on the other side. Where's the agenda? What is your plan as president? And what I began to find is conversations and entertainment. After she announced, she went right into entertainment. And one of the things people said on my post was, well, we have a short period of time, so it doesn't matter. We got to get behind. That reinforces my criticism even more. You know you came into this late. You should be getting straight to your policies, not twerking with Meg. You should be showing the people that you're serious about this job, and this is what you're going to be focusing and zooming in on. That's my personal opinion. I'm waiting for it. When it's published, I'm happy to go ahead and comb through it like I did with every other candidate. Robert Kennedy, I started combing through his agenda to see what he was about when he was campaigning really hard. It doesn't matter what side of the political campaign they are on. None of that matters to me. I don't vote blue just because everybody in my family voted blue and tell me to. I vote for the people that I think can do the best job. And I would love to see some people who are Black politicians and people who do have more experience than I have in the political arena create a process that the Black community can reference that says, hey, it's voting time. Here's the things you should do to really feel confident in who you're voting for and why. Here you go. And if any of you listening know people who are doing that and have those kind of resources, I would love to connect with them. Because on my post, I wanted to know, what is the level of knowledge of the people who are responding? Hey, did you actually read this thing you're criticizing? A lot of people was like, no, it's 1,000 pages. Okay, there's only 100 days left. We don't have time to read. You can't read 1,000 pages in 100. See, this is why we got to look at the policies, because the Black illiteracy rate in this country is a problem, and we should be able to read policies in 100 days and articulate the points that we stand beside. So this is the kind of stuff that's on my mind. It's important to me. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What are we doing here collectively? What are we about? And do you think the world is not watching how we move and what moves us and deciding if they should respect that or not? Yeah, they watching. So anyway, that's my I said, let me just go live. I love everybody. I love you, whether we agreed on that post or not. And I've already released a lot of the energy that I looked at and said, now, wait a minute. Who is this? Because some people I didn't even know. And why are you making these assumptions? I never said I wasn't voting. I never said who I was voting for. So where are you getting this from? You're projecting. And I tolerated it for a little bit, and then I began to shut it down and say, all right, now, as much as I love you, you don't get to swing that over here just because you are dysregulated emotionally. And in a trauma response off of a meme I posted, we can have the conversation, but how we have it does matter. What we articulate and when we get really emotional about things, breathe, ground, and then come back and actually hear what is being said instead of what you think is being implied. I'm very concise with my questions and my statements. So if I say something, I mean what I said. If I ask something, it's legitimately a question. But sometimes we get so emotional and worked up. And I can promise you this, the people on my posts who are like that, they don't just do this in political conversations. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So where else in your life are you so emotionally dysregulated that can't nobody truly hear what you're trying to articulate? And you can't really hear what's being said because your emotional habit resides in your trauma and your wounds. Shows up everywhere. It shows up at your job, shows up in your love life. I'm not the first person to tell you to calm down and that you're not listening. You're not hearing what I'm saying. You're hearing what you think I said. I know I ain't the first person in your life to do it. Because I do this work every day with people. I work with women. And I see what happens when people are functioning in their trauma brain. I don't know how useful that's going to be to the collective of Black voters and the Black movement politically. The majority of the people are functioning in their trauma brain, in their wounded narrative. I want to encourage that anywhere. I want to encourage people to make decisions rooted in fear anywhere. I do think there is a better way. So that's that. Love y'all. Bye.